rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zeimet.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Beverly Zeimet Show, where being the best you can be just got easier. My guest today is Raschell Harlingten. Did I say that right?
Harlingten.
Harlingten. Okay. She's calling in from Toronto, Canada. And it's an honor to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Beverly. I'm so excited to be here and honored as well.
Good. We're going to have a fun hour.
Absolutely.
So let's just talk a little bit first, about who you are, what makes you tick, and what your passions are. So let our audience know what that is.
Okay, sure, absolutely. So I am a transformational intuitive coach, and I started on this journey probably about 4 or 5 years ago. But leading up to that, I had a lot of incidents within my life that really sort of pushed me to understand where I am now. I had marriage that went sideways. I was sort of, with my father's work, we went from one country to another country, a lot of cultural influences, and it really shaped who I was. And when I came back, I thought, I'm going to start a family and do the normal thing that I was supposed to do. Well, that didn't work out.
Yeah, this supposed to do things are like, really? I fell in that trap too, and it's like, this is not like where I'm supposed to be. Something's got to change.
Yeah, no. And you know what? But it gave me some tools, because once I decided, all right, time to leave, I had my 2 kids in tow, and it was scary for a little bit. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there were lots of ups and downs trying to manage 2 little ones by yourself and not sure what you really wanted. So I think in 2011, I basically said, all right, you know what? I've had enough working in the corporate world. I'm just going to walk away from it all. And everybody thought I was crazy, including my parents. They were like, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I'm just going to find something to do because I'm not happy.
I had that same conversation with my parents when I did that. I like you said, you took your 2 kids in tow. I took my 3. I left farm country Iowa, headed out to the big city of Denver, Colorado, and it's like, and got a divorce and everything. And my dad's like, what are you doing? Right? And it's like, I don't know, but I'm going to have a good time doing it, whatever it is.
Exactly. Because, it didn't feel right. So,
right.
And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to start my own business. So that's when I started my first entrepreneurial business. I worked with animals, which I absolutely loved, because I got to make my own days. There was no ceiling to my income, and I got to actually spend a lot more time with my kids than I was before. And what was great about it was, if the kids were having a crappy day at school, I'd pull them out and say, come with me and the dogs today. We're going to go hiking. And it was wonderful. It was just absolutely amazing. And I would definitely encourage anybody who enjoys working with animals, because they are so healing. But then I decided, I started getting this feeling, this calling to kind of move forward. And I wasn't sure what it was. And it was actually at a Jack Canfield event. And it was after the event where I was sitting there, and I kept getting this feeling like I was supposed to do something else, but I wasn't sure what. And then things started to kind of fall into place where I was supposed to, I'd already helped a lot of people. Friends of mine, they'd tell me their whole life story, and I would give them, maybe try this, try that. And so I was already sort of supporting friends and family. So I thought, perhaps this is sort of where my journey is supposed to go. And, as soon as you dive into that pool, you just go in, it's like it suddenly opens up, and everything started to open, right? And I was like, okay, this feels good. This feels like I'm supposed to be doing this. And it was like doors started to open, people started to come into my life, and things started to shift and move. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. So that was amazing. And then last year, I knew it was time to close the chapter. So I sold the first entrepreneurial business to an amazing lady. And I still have sort of my feet in it just to kind of guide her.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel so good because I know that the trajectory I'm on now is where I'm supposed to be. And it feels amazing supporting women, entrepreneurs, people, and even the youth. Like I really share it with a lot of my children's friends as well.
Right.
Once we're at it, so yeah, it's been an incredible journey. And I really feel like in those lows where I was, those gave me the inspiration to go higher, to go more.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
That's a great message because it's so true. When you're on the bottom, the only place is up, right? And it is a good place to go. And you made a comment here about how it felt, right? That it felt like you were just supposed to go, and you just felt and moved with it and went. And I can so relate to that. It's interesting because your journey started just a few years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mine started way back in 1974, and the similarities are really pretty amazing because, I didn't know what I was going to do either. I just knew I was going to do something, and it was definitely going to be different. And I'd pretty much always been my own boss, right? Had my own time to do whatever. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and so I did my arts and crafts. I wrote for 5 different newspapers, stuff like that. I did outside sales, where you didn't cap off. It's like if you sold more, you made more, right?
Right.
And so it was all of that. And again, like you said, you have more time to spend with your children. And going out with the animals and nature walking. I did a lot of nature. For me, nature is where it's at. There's such harmony in nature, and the animal spirits and I listen to what nature says. You're intuitive, and we all are. Okay,
We all are. Yeah.
And the intuition, the intuitiveness, the psychicness, or whatever you want to call it, that I had growing up as a child. Well, when you're preschool, it's like you thought everybody was this way, and then as you're going through school, you're thinking everybody's this way. Well, they're not. And then all of a sudden, it's like you're made fun of, you're teased. It's it's like, well, what the heck is going on? I never suppressed my intuition. I was small, and so I did get picked on a lot. I took that intuitiveness to get even. I think that led me into really being the strategist that I am, because it's like, how do I get even with this, right? But I could instigate. I could convince people to do anything, as a kid. Anything, no matter what. And they'd always get in trouble at the end. But I could still bring it back. Oh, it ain't going to happen this time. Whatever it was. So that's part of that sales. That's part of that, my way of getting even or whatever, back then. But it kept my intuition alive.
Yeah.
Right? That feeling. Because it's something that we all should focus on and really understand that it's in here. When you listen to what that feeling is, what is that gut telling you? And how many times, Raschell, have you pushed it aside and then it came back to bite you, right?
Yes.
And
Well, it's yeah. You're like, okay, I'm not really going to listen. I'm going to go this way. And then you're like, oh, I should have listened.
Exactly. So, but that comes with years of wisdom too, and it's like, okay. So, in these days now, I mean, I intuitively pick something. It's just, I just pay attention. I don't even question any of it. It becomes like an automatic pilot. And we talk about automatic pilot, your back history, that stuff back there, right, that you want to eliminate, with the trauma and negative emotions and feelings, hurt feelings and stuff like that happened throughout your childhood, that old database of stuff that is stuck in your cells because it's become your truth. It's become that habit thing, right? And so is your personality, and you keep repeating it. And it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, right? How do you get out of it? Right? And it's sometimes it can be challenging. But when you wake up and it's like, I am really going to do something about this. I want to get rid of living this life the way I've been living it and find something new. that's the first step. And I think that's what you just shared with the audience is there's got to be more. There has
Yeah.
to be more. And you followed that, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So how do you incorporate that into your clients and when people come to you? What is some of the things that bring people to you?
Um, well, I love to talk, as you and I both know. That first time we chatted on the phone for like, I think 2 hours or something.
I know, a 15-minute call, right? And 2
Right.
hours later, it's like, wow.
Um, I don't know. For me, it's just really feeling comfortable with someone and really listening to them, letting them just speak. Because sometimes when they speak their programs, like we talk. They start spitting them out, and that's usually when I can say, okay, this is where I can see where you have some underlying programs, some underlying trauma. Let's
Mm-hmm.
dive deeper into that, and
Right.
let's take a look at that and how that's serving you today. And a lot of times, like you said, we make decisions presently based on something that was taught to us before, or
Right.
even in another lifetime, where we're making these decisions and we're thinking, why am I doing this? This isn't,
Right.
I don't want to do this, but we're conditioned because it's like a pattern. So a lot of times they'll come to me and they'll be like, I want to do this, but I can't because every time I do this, I have fear come up, anxiety come up, or I'm, something comes up where I can't move forward. So we usually take a look at that, find the programs, and then also rewrite your story. Because a lot of times I say to people, the story that you have is more than likely not yours. It's something that
Right.
has been given to you. It's like the husband and the wife that are cooking the ham. And the husband says, honey, why do you cut the ends of the ham off? And she says, well, I don't know. My mom just did it. He said, well, let's call your mom. So they call the mother and she says, well, grandma did it. So they end up calling grandma and she says, oh, I just cut the ends of the ham off because the pot was too small. So here's something 3 generations handed down, but it doesn't serve you today, but you just did it because everybody else did it.
Right. So there must be a reason why. That was a great analogy. And that is so true. So many things in life are the same way. It's in that genetic patterning almost, And when you look at other things that can maybe even go back to Neanderthal man, right? Back to caveman, back to all of these things that are written in that DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed, the big thing is when I first started on my journey and started my clearing, and I'm telling you, back in '74, there was nobody to talk to back there. You either you either talk to yourself or you went to a shrink, and if you let anybody else see you talking to yourself, they were hauling you off the nut house. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy, but it was my way of getting out. I had so much anger. Oh my gosh, the anger I had in myself was imploding. It was crazy. But once I started getting it out and I started listening to myself and just moving through it and moving through it and moving through it, again, I was rewriting my story. And you made a good point when you said the story that you have isn't even yours. And if it's an event that you experienced and there is emotions with it, because there's always emotions, it's the feeling that attaches to the emotion that kind of stays hanging around. The thing is when you start to share those emotions, even in other events, the emotion is the same. The fuel coming from the past one is still there. Now you're adding more. You're talking with somebody else and they relate to that emotion, so they share their story. You attach to their stuff. All of a sudden, you have this little molehill that's this massive mountain, right?
Right.
And it's coming up and it's replaying everybody's stuff. So 95% of everything that you're responding to isn't even yours,
Absolutely true.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's getting away from that. It's getting out of that. And over the years, I've developed a lot of different little techniques, and I started really perfecting them. I wrote a book called The Power Formula. And so it speaks on the different consciousnesses. It speaks on the different parts of the mind. Speaks on these emotions and the feelings, right? The difference between emotion and feeling. And then how to get rid of it through the rah-rah system, which is 5 simple steps. And there's other ways to doing this, and people use different words. But you first have to recognize what's going on, right?
Yes.
And then acknowledge that what you've recognized is a truth, because it is your truth, because it's stored in those cells. And if you don't acknowledge that it's a truth, your ability to let go, the subconscious is like this little kid that's got his toy. It's mine. Nobody can have it. This is mine. I'm not going to share. It's mine. Right? Right?
Yes, exactly.
So when you acknowledge that that was a truth, now it's okay to let it go, because it no longer serves purpose. Now that's where the logic of, kind of bribing that subconscious, which is the child, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, well, you have this toy. How about this toy? Look at it, can do all these funny things, right? Oh, okay, boom, and then they take it, right? So your subconscious is kind of like that. But again, it's first you got to acknowledge that, and then you begin releasing it. Well, once you've gotten that file cleaned out, now what are you going to do? You have a void. Now you can rewrite. This is the most fun part, because you can put your new truth in there, right? Your new belief. What is the database of information that you can add in there to fill it up, right? And then embrace that and accept it as your new truth. That's the power, right?
Yeah, that is. And I think that's huge, because that, for me, in my programs, is the biggest, is actually recognizing what is going on. When you pay attention, you start, like you said, you start to see all of those issues, all of those programs that don't serve you. And you're like, wow, I never really looked at it that way. I just thought that's the way it was. Like,
right.
Nope.
And the key word there, was. That's the rear view mirror, right? It was. It doesn't have to be in the now. And so it's really important to help people understand that if you want to change your past from repeating itself, the change has to take place in the now. And then your future will look different than your past.
Absolutely.
Right?
I always say to people, stop, let your past always is trying to pull you, or push you along, but ultimately you want your future to pull you through, so that you're experiencing things, you're seeing what you want to experience, not your past going, well, let's just push you along here, you just bring all that baggage with you. No, let it go.
Yeah. And that
leave it at the door.
It gets heavier and heavier and heavier, because there's always more stuff being dumped in, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, no. Absolutely.
And that is a good way to look at that. And again, so when we look at making goals, we look at setting our dreams, getting your dreams back and putting them on a vision board. Get them out of your head. There's so much going on up here in this head. Get it out. And it has been proven that when you write things down, or you put it, on a vision board in picture form, that it will come into fruition way much faster than if you keep it up here, right? And
absolutely.
So, yeah. And that's part of that pulling, right? So when you look at that vision board, there it is, and it's like, wow, you keep on that focus, because what you focus on is what you create. What the mind can conceive and believe, it achieves, right? And so it gives you that forward pull, because it happens in the now. The now is where the how is. Don't dwell on the how. That's where that intuition comes in. Okay, start listening, start paying attention, start really observing what's going on around you. What are the silent messages coming to you? And you made a comment earlier in the show about doors opening, where you just walked out of this, went into the complete unknown, not in fear, in excitement, right? In adventure, right? And so you let that fear fuel your adventure out there, right? And waited for the how to just show up. So when I started this show, it's just like a little over a month and a half ago. The doors that have been, I know, it feels like it's been going on forever, but the guests that I've had on this show have been so spectacular. It's all organic. We didn't rehearse this. It's the first time we actually saw each other in person. We did speak by phone. Most people don't even speak by phone, right?
Wow.
and so it's organic. It's just what comes out. And that's being real. Right? And so the doors that have been opening for me are just nothing I could have ever imagined at all. And again, that's just doing, following that gut feeling or whatever it is, however you want to interpret that intuition. Just, I got to do this. I don't know why. I'm not sure how, but I'm going to do it. And those doors just open and open and open. And that's the adventure, right?
Yeah.
That's the adventure. What's
Absolutely.
on the other side of that door over there? All right,
Yeah. And the more that you get excited about that, your vibration changes, your energy changes.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is things that are the same match for you start to come into your life.
Right.
So you start to meet new people, doors open, things come in, things show up. It's because you're changing how you're approaching it. Your energy is uplifting. It's focused on what you want to see, where you want to go. And so suddenly people, things come into your life and you're like, wow, but it's because you've changed yourself and how you vibrate. And so now the universe goes, okay, I'm going to give you this because guess what? You're ready to get it because you're matching.
Yeah, that vibrational match has come together. And again, because you're focused on that, and it takes all these little pieces to bring it all together. Universe will do that for you. That's the law, right?
Yeah.
The magnetic pull of wherever it is. But if you keep changing that focus, one day you want to be a cowboy, the next day you want to be a fireman, the next day you want to be a mountain climber. It's like the universe is going to say, well, when you figure it out, you let me know, right?
Yeah. And a good thing it doesn't happen right automatically. Otherwise, you'd have all this stuff coming at you.
Exactly. So know your focus, and then focus on that and let it happen. Just throw it out to the universe and let it happen. Same thing with relationships. If a relationship goes sideways, like you said, mine went upside down, whatever it was, it was time to come to an end, right? And the new beginning. So you don't want to bring that old pattern into a new relationship. So it's like, okay, what is it that you're looking for in a relationship? What is it that you are going to bring into that relationship? Because it's two sides of the fence. So when you know what you're seeking in a relationship and know what you're bringing into that relationship, the universe can then bring that match together and bring it in harmony, right?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And sometimes I feel you think you want one thing, and then that person shows up and you realize, no, I didn't really want that. However, the universe has shown you something. If you're open to accept it and you learn something from it, now it may not end on a good note, but you're like, okay. And if you're open, you're like, I see what I needed to understand within myself. This is why I attracted this relationship.
Right.
And now I can release it because I've learned. And moving forward, I know what I need to do. And that could be romantic, that could be a friendship, it could be whatever you want it to be. But you have to be aware of when it does, if what the relationship is giving you, what it's showing you, because every relationship that you have with everybody is a mirror of what is actually going on within yourself. And it's showing you either something that maybe you don't want to see or something you want to see, right? So it's really important to pay attention to that because what you're thinking of, what you're creating in your mind and what you're speaking becomes matter and reality. And then it's suddenly in your reality and you're like, well, wait a minute, I didn't want this. And you've got to now deal with it. But you did because you put it out there.
Focused on it. Yeah. You made a couple key points there. The mirror. We are all mirrors of one another. And so when you recognize something in someone else and you're pointing a finger, you're saying, oh man, there's no way I would do anything like that. But in reality, if you be honest with yourself, lie to the world. But don't lie to yourself, right? It's like, that's why I don't like this person, because they keep doing this. And it's like, oh yeah, I kind of do that myself. Right? And it's like, okay, time for the change. And when that happens, you become that better you.
Yes.
Right? And that's what this theme is all about, is being that better you. And you have to recognize that. So in all these little things, and it's not just relationships that are personal, it's relationships in business. It's actually business adventures where all of these pieces come together. Right? And it's that learning that's learning. You know, so you can go back into, these are the wants that you want in the relationship, and these are the ones that you're bringing, and then take another sheet and say, okay, these are the things I am not going to bring into this relationship this time, right? Because you've learned the lessons, right? This is not what I'm going to bring because I've seen other people, and so I don't want that, right? And this is in the partner I'm looking for. I don't want him to do this, to this, to this, and all. So if you don't want a partner that smokes, you better say you don't want a smoker. If you want a partner that doesn't have hair in his face, you better say you don't want that, right? You know, so all these different don'ts, put the don'ts down, and then when you have those together, do a little ceremony thing, you know, that, okay, these are the things that I'm letting go of. These are the things that my partner isn't, you know, doesn't have going on. And tear them up, start a little fire, you know, put it in an ashtray or something, or go outside and dig a hole in the ground. But then burn those things. And that's that transformation. You mentioned transformation at the beginning of the show, right? Yes. Fire transmutes the energy of the negative into the positive. So when you can do that, it's the feeling that you get when you take all of those don'ts and you actually watch them transform on this written paper into nothing but ashes, and then you can cover them up with the dirt. It is so refreshing, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, because you've released everything. You've released all of the stuff that you don't want to see. And at the same time, you also have to understand that sometimes those things that you don't want in a relationship are things that perhaps maybe you have that you're, again, reflecting back.
Right.
So I always like to say, sometimes when we say we don't want these things, it's because we either have them, and so we have to look at both sides. We say, okay, I want all these things in a person, but am I all those things as well?
Because yes, that's a great question to ask. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's a give and take. So it is really about being true to oneself, one's being, about the love and what you want to give to just everyone and the human consciousness, and understanding that whatever the relationship is, business, love, friend, it's about the exchange of learning, experiencing, and being true to oneself.
Right. You know, when you can be true to yourself and you honor yourself, it's a lot easier to honor that other person.
Absolutely.
Right? And accept them for who and what they are, because that's their journey, not yours. Right? That's their journey. If you don't want to be judged, then you move judgment away from them. And when you honor whatever their choices are, whoever they are, you honor that.
Yep. I totally agree with you. Yeah. Right? That's so important. I share this a lot with my children, as I say to them, you know, when people give you an opinion, it's not your place to judge. It's your place to say, you know what, your opinion is neither right nor wrong, but it's your opinion and you own it. Yeah. And I respect that, and walk away from it, because where that person is, like you said, on their journey, you have to respect them and understand them. You can't be judging them and saying, well, you don't fit this, or I don't like you because of this. It's very hard to not do that because of our physical world.
Right.
But I think if you come from that place of respecting them and saying that's where you are, and I respect that, then you leave a different kind of footprint. You have a different energetic vibration towards that person, and they in return respect you.
Exactly. Like, oh. It's a give and take, you know. And so when you can respect them because you're respecting yourself, because again, you can't give out of yourself more than what you've given to yourself.
Exactly.
Right. And what I noticed on my journey, you know, and the stuff, I've got 10 brothers and sisters. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that once before. Yeah.
and I'm second oldest. Okay. So cleaning my act up, so to speak, and you know, and the emotions and all of the feelings that I had suppressed, right? I watched the journey, and I watched the first half of all of us, and then the second half, because there's a huge difference. There's 20 years between myself and my youngest sister.
Oh wow!
And my older sister is just shy of 2 years, so 22 years between the oldest and the youngest. That's 2 different families, right?
Yeah.
You know, the first half, you know, we worked a lot harder. There was a lot more things to do. We were on farm life, you know, and you just did. And mom and dad were young, and you know, you don't come with an instruction book to raise
No,
kids, right?
I say that all the time.
You know, and so in the second half had it a lot easier, a lot different. You know, they were, you know, mom and dad had retired. They left Iowa, moved to Montana. You know, so a lot of things were different. So it's like two different families. But I'm watching how my shifting is going on, cleaning my act up, and all the changes I've made in myself to be who I am, to really uncover my true identity, right? And how it impacted the DNA and how I was being responded to from my siblings, right? Because of my intuitiveness, that psychic ability or whatever. Because once I left Iowa in '79, I moved to Colorado. I had never really even heard that word psychic. I did not have a clue what it was I was doing. I just knew I was doing something that was feeling good for me. It was changing my life. And then I was introduced to people out there that started questioning me, saying, do you have any idea what you're doing? And I didn't even know what they were talking about. And then I was exposed through civil mind control in 1982. And that was a game changer in my life, because it helped me understand everything that had been going on my life since 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
And it just, everything changed. All these light bulbs came on. Oh my God, explains that, explains that, explains this, you know, and it's like, that's when I started realizing some of the instigation and the things that I was doing, it was coming from that, right? Right, so, but I just knew it worked. You know, I didn't care what it was, it just worked. But at the same time, you don't know what you don't know. And from that point on, my life changed so much because I had an understanding of that piece of me that now made perfectly good sense. And that speeded up everything else that I was doing to really unveil to myself who I truly am. And then because, you know, it was like, oh, you're doing your voodoo thing and you're whatever and, you know, all this kind of stuff. But you know what? The shifting that happened, where all my siblings now don't make fun of what I do. They will actually come and ask me different things. Right? Hey, can you check this out for me? Hey, what's going on over here? You know, and they come to me for health things as well, you know. And it's like, wow, this is cool. And I watched my mom change. My dad was already out of the picture, but my mom wasn't. And I watched her shift some certain things, right? You know, we grew up in a very strong Catholic foundation, church every day, 12 years parochial school, nuns, priests, the whole thing, right? And, you know, where I moved out of that package and into a different package. But to talk with my mom, to talk with my aunts about this intuition thing, because they had it. You know, they had it. And they didn't know what to do with it. And so they started asking me questions about, oh, okay, so when I did this as a kid, or when I did this as a young adult, you know, and these things come up, right? And I could explain to help them understand what that was. That felt so awesome, right? In a world of hidden things that you didn't talk about, you know, because back
you
then,
didn't talk about it. No,
back then it was more like, you know, witchy things and it kind of that stigma, or you're going crazy because you got these voices in your head and you're paying attention to these voices, you know. I mean, we have definitely come a long, long way.
A huge way. And people are more open to it now, you know. When I was a kid in the 80s, even like just, I would hear things and it got me out a lot of crap. I mean, there were things that happened and I would hear things to like leave or go, but I never really shared them with anybody because I thought, well, people will think I'm weird if I start saying this stuff. So I suppressed it. And it's funny how when traumatic situations happen in our life, suddenly all that stuff comes back and it kind of smacks us in the face. to say,
It sure does.
it's always been there. You've always had it. You just need to recognize it now because it's time.
Right.
And so I really think it's important for people to realize that and embrace it and not look at it as something bad or going crazy.
Right.
So, you know.
Right. You know, and when we talk about law of attraction, we talk about the universe making that vibrational match, right? This is intuition at its finest. This is manifestation, right? And you can have that instantaneous stuff, right? It's moving the stuff out of the way, you know, and you go back into some of the biblical prophecies, some of the things that were said back there. It's an educational book if you read it from a different perspective, right? You know, when Jesus said, you know, that mountain over there, you can move it if you have no doubt. But if you have so much as 1 ounce of doubt, that mountain ain't going nowhere. You know, so break that down into things that is going on in your life. If you want that, you can have it and you can create it, but you've got to move the doubts and everything that is in the way of making it manifest.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, so it's all energy. Everything out here is energy. Right? There's no right or wrong. It's just an is. And you need to discover what your is. Because everyone has their own is. And that's honoring and respecting, as we mentioned earlier, right? That other person for what their is. Their is isn't right for you because it's theirs, not yours.
Yeah.
Right? And doing the work that we do, Raschell, is not we're telling somebody what they need to or don't need to do. It's helping them to recognize where they're looking to make the shift, because sometimes it's in our face and you can't see it. You're too close to the forest to see the trees.
Exactly.
Right? And people need people. So when someone is on the outside looking in, they can see your trees. They can see the weeds that need to grow. They can see the thorns that need to shift, right? And it's like you make suggestions. Well, what about? And then all of a sudden the light bulb comes on and it's like, I never looked at it from that perspective. Well, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Now they're recognizing things that have been too close to the situation, that are just automatic pilot.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that as coaches, that's what we we do, is not so much telling them what to do, but making them aware and recognizing and pointing those things out that they don't always see. And it's like, well, perhaps if you shifted this way, or maybe if you looked at it from that perspective, or do you even see this? And then once they realize that and recognize that, then everything, like you said, starts to shift.
Right.
And they're able to flow.
Yeah.
And they're able to see what they want to do and make those changes, and they're aware.
And it's coming from a non-judgmental perspective, right? Where you're making suggestions like, well, what if? Well, I don't know. What if? That's a good question. What if? You know, and it also helps them to start triggering their imagination, bringing back that dream state. You know, way back when, here in my past, I really wanted this. You mean I can still get it? I can still have it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can bring it into real life when you begin to focus on it and understand what got in the way that suppressed it, right? Yeah. And so life is a game of Jeopardy. All the answers are right in here.
Yeah.
We just need to find the right question to get to that answer. And that's what we as coaches and practitioners do, is to help recognize the question so that you can go inward to get the answer. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So, gosh. Hey, you told me that you wrote a book.
I did.
I just remembered that.
I did. Yeah, I wrote a book last year. It was funny too, because last year I went through a lot of turmoil, but at the beginning of the year I was in the middle of going through a divorce, and I sat down one day and wrote the book in probably about 5 hours. And then, of course, I sat with the editor over a period of about 4 months and edited it.
Right.
But it's called You Discover Your Prosperity Blueprint. And it really gets you when you pick the book up, because it's a short read. It's on Amazon. It's a short read, but it helps you understand that you have to really stop looking at what you're going through and look how you're reacting to things. Be aware of the moment in now. Look at how things are flowing in your life. And every time you pick it up and read it, I have been told that they get a little something different each time.
Sure.
Because you grow, and then you pick it up, read it again, and you're like, oh, and now I'm aware of this. So it's the same
Right.
thing. It's like bringing that awareness. So it was a really easy book to write for me. It shared a lot about myself as a child, growing up with my father who traveled a lot. As I said at the beginning of the show, growing up in North Africa, going through a lot of changes there, seeing a lot of things back in the 80s that a 16 and 17-year-old was just like, wow, this actually exists. And
Yeah.
coming back, and coming back with like all these feelings of anger and sort of, not understanding why there was so much conflict towards women, towards just the Western world, and then sort of working my way through it, going through my first divorce and walking away with my 2 kids, and understanding that ultimately I and you and everybody else are in control of their life. We just have to believe, and we have to be present in the now, because there's no past, there's no future, there's now. And when you live within that moment and breathe that in, that's when the prosperity becomes part of your life, the abundance, and you start to shift that blueprint. Because the blueprint, as I said before, is no longer it's someone else's. You start to rewrite it. You start to change the way that you live, the way that you look at the world. Everything vibrates differently for you, and new things start to come within your life. So yeah, that's what the book
that is so true. And when we talk prosperity, right, and abundance, it's in every aspect of your life. It's not just, most people think of prosperity as being money, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's so much more. And being grateful, that's one thing too, is, give yourself time every day, even if it's just for a minute, right, to really look around and be grateful for what you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be grateful for those people that are in your life. Be grateful even for the mistakes. Be grateful for the trials and tribulations. Be grateful for everything that you have that you're going to overcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And honor yourself and respect yourself for that, because all you have, when it boils down to, in the end, is just you.
Absolutely.
Right?
And sometimes I've had clients say, well, what can I be grateful for? And I've sat there and said, well, you've got lots of things. And they're like, well, like what? And I said, okay, well, you're laying in a really warm bed every night, and you're comfortable with sheets over you. Well, yeah. I said, what else? They said, well, I have this cat. I said, well, in the morning when the cat crawls up on your bed and sits and purrs on your chest, be grateful for that energy, that quiet moment. Those things, just those simple little tiny things where you start to be grateful for those things, it kind of balloons and vibrates out, and bigger things come into your life to be grateful for. But start small. Start small with that soft pillow, that warm blanket, that purring cat, your happy face of your child running in the morning and tapping you on the forehead and saying, Mommy, Mommy, good morning. That is what you should be grateful for, right? Those things.
And that's sad. That statement that you made was, people don't know what to be grateful for. It's and it's so true. It's just like we get lost in the familiarity of everything that's around us. You just take it for granted.
You do.
So look at the things that you're taking for granted, because you know what? Like you said, the experiences that you had, in your teen years, in a whole different culture, and it's like, wow, when you come back, you can appreciate how women are respected and honored, here than where they are somewhere else. You can read about those things, you can hear about those things, but when you see it firsthand, it's like, wow, this really is real. you know?
Yeah.
So that also helps you to recognize, to be more appreciative of what you do have. But again, look around you, and again, start with those small things, It's
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
yeah. I mean, here we all are in quarantine, right? And it's like, wow, I'll tell you, one of the greatest things I was grateful for is we got high-speed internet,
Absolutely. It's connected us all. So we can
Exactly.
put everything virtually and talk to each other,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
without that, we wouldn't be here having this conversation,
No, we
So, so there's so many things around us to be grateful for, regardless of what it is, right? I'm so grateful that I'm here with a friend that we're sharing a very close environment. I mean, it's a small, very small space, and it's like, okay, so how do we make this work, and again, it's honoring each other as well,
Mhm.
right? So being grateful for that, being grateful that you got a roof over your head, be grateful, like you said, you got a nice, comfortable bed, that you can cover up to, and it's just every little thing. Be grateful that you have, the opportunity to have food on the table, right?
Yeah.
And even with all this hoarding that was going on, when all of a sudden, I mean, in the 70 years that I've been on this planet, I had never seen that in a grocery store. And when I walked in the first time, I mean, it was just something that I never gave it a thought. And we walked into the store, to pick up a few things. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was like a shock to me. I just, it blew my mind. I'm like, oh my God, this is really
But that's
real.
fear. Yeah, it's fear, and people,
Yeah,
do crazy things in fear. I don't
yeah,
know. I never did that. I just kind of this whole experience with this is I've just made sure that I'm present every day, that I'm eating
yeah,
healthy, that I'm embracing what it's giving me. And I talked about a lot of going within and understanding how this is affecting us physically,
right,
how we're honoring ourselves, how mentally we're looking at things, emotionally how we're feeling, and then socially how we're affecting other people. How are we supporting other people
right,
during this? So for
right.
me, this is great. I am actually really sort of embracing this in a real positive way.
Yeah, and I
So
think there's when you talk about the movement, the awakening movement, right? This is a time of definite awakening. And how you respond to this isolation, it's given you the freedom and the time to start to, as we mentioned earlier in the show, to transform and rewrite your story.
yes,
How is your story going to be out there? What's the chapter when they say quarantine is over? Are you going to try to bring the old story with you, or are you going
yeah,
to take the new story you've created here? Right? It's
yeah.
going to be it's going to be more interesting watching what happens going out than coming in.
Yes.
You know?
to see how it all shifts and how people react to it once they're out. Yeah,
Yeah,
it will
and,
be.
and, and again, it is this internal thing, and how you're going to interact with people, I think, are going to be completely different, because it's like this new child now that's coming into this big world out here, right?
Hmm.
It's not just these limitations that have been. It's like poof, now it's all wide up. Oh wow, I can go over here, and I can go over here, and I can do that, and that door's open. Oh, what do they got new in there? And it's just seriously, the curiosity, right? And again,
Yeah.
I had one of my guests share with me when we talked about that fear thing, right? Is she let curiosity override her fear,
Yes. That's a
right?
good analogy.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so, and I've shared this before too on some of the shows, when we look at the positive and the negative forces, right? Because it's not about right or wrong, it's not about good or bad. It's about, we have a negative charge and we have a positive charge. And because of
Hmm.
the planet we live on, we need both charges to work. It's like when you take a magnet, you have north and south polarities, right? Negative, positive force polarities, right?
Right.
So it's how they attach, right? Or they resist. So when you're looking at fear, you can take that fear, because it is the negative force, and apply it underneath, like she applied it to the curiosity, and that negative force drove her curiosity
Wow.
to
Yeah.
manifest what she was focusing on out there. Now, had she taken that fear and driven it to frustration, unknown, right, it would have went this way, and she would have went further into depression, anxieties, upsets, all these things, right? So where are you putting your driving force? What is your driving force? So your driving force should be your ultimate goal out here of what you want. And that fear, because everything attaches to fear, attaches to love, right?
Yeah. Ultimately, it is. It's all about love.
Everything else is gray matter. So you can take that fear, put it under your dream, your total outcome, and allow that to drive and just be that your driving force to get you out there. Build that confidence, build that trust, build that belief, right, within yourself, instead of letting it take you down. Let it drive you forward. And the more it drives you forward, the faster it will pick up, the momentum will pick up, right?
Yes. Absolutely. And you start to see different perspectives, and you start to engage, and you start to look at different things. So, and different vibrations start to come into your reality. So, but again, it is up to the individual whether or not they want to embrace that or they don't.
Yeah. And it's choice. It's choice.
It is just choice.
And you can't be in both places at the same time.
No.
And change, that's one of the hardest things for people to accept is change. And when you look at the situation in the world today, it's not just your area, it's the whole planet, right?
Yes.
Instantaneous change. I mean, one day here you were, and the next day, boom, here you were. And what are you going to do with that change? I mean, man, apple carts were upset right and left, right? And so now this change has become the norm for the last 4 to 6 weeks. What are you going to do when that change goes back into the vastness? That's a question that each and every one of us needs to really start looking deep inside here. Okay, my normalcy has been shifted. The story has been changed because it takes 30 days to create a new habit. It's been 30 days, right?
Yeah.
And it's been reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. What are you going to do with this change?
Right.
When you're thrown into another change.
And some will embrace it beautifully, and others will be, I feel, in a place of fear all the time.
Well, because again, is it going to throw me back into this? Where is it going to happen?
Right. Exactly.
And, yeah. And so it's again working in unison in a global opportunity, and that's one of the things this show has really helped me. Listening to all these people, because I talk to people on the other side of the equator. I've talked to them on the other side of the pond, right? And getting different perspectives from all these different countries and everything that's happening. And you know what? It's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same. We are one.
Yes, absolutely.
And now it's proven that even more. So let's unite as one, right? Let's keep that positive force moving. And healers and coaches, that are in this awakening, that have had this experience and know how, we're going to be needed more once the quarantine is lifted than we've ever been needed before. And to be able to have what we have here through the internet, and it's going to be so different and expansive, like we've never had before, right? And so it's going to be that reaching out, because we want to let every one of you out there know that we're here. Raschell and I are here. We're only two of a mass community that is here to help you really transform into the essence of the soul spirit of who you are, and find that beauty like you've never seen before, and shine. That's what's going to create this planet, the peace and the harmony that it was designed for. Right?
Absolutely. Very, very well said. Yeah. Because it starts within. If you are happy within, your love and happiness affects the human consciousness and ultimately the entire world.
That's right.
So It does.
It does. It
So,
does, because we're all connected. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, Raschell, what's one piece of advice you can give our audience here? Just one more little morsel. You've shared so many great things. It's been so awesome. It's been such an honor to have you here. So,
Oh, thank
one
you.
more little piece of what they can do to help them become that better them.
I think I'm just going to go back to just, you know, basically what I said before was a lot of people always look at what they're going through. Wow, look what I'm going through. Look what I'm going through. But take a moment, take a breath, and stop looking at what you're going through and look at how you're reacting to it. Because that will give you insight as to what you should shift or what you can look at differently. That's what I would definitely leave you with.
Oh, that's amazing, because it's so true. Yeah, look
Yeah,
how it's impacting you. Because when you can face the reality of how it's impacting you, now you can make a change,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And so, what's taken you years to go through, you have the choice. You can make it instantaneous and be out of it tomorrow or the next minute, right?
Exactly.
But it's that recognizing, how is it that you're
Hmm.
responding to it? That's powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And
You're
oh,
welcome.
we're gonna have to do this again. We'll definitely have to get you on the show again. Hey,
Oh, thank
let us
you.
know. Comment down here below. What did you like about Raschell? Isn't she amazing? And don't forget her book. Let's put this picture up here again. Here's her book, Your Prosperity Blueprint, right? Self-discipline,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And wow, it's on Amazon. You said, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Yeah,
Okay.
Kindle version or paper copy, whatever you like. So, and what's great is all of the proceeds go to an amazing humanitarian foundation that supports communities globally. Supports them in theirs, brings leaders together so they can grow within their own community. So, when you're reading the book, you're not only supporting yourself, but you're supporting other communities worldwide.
Oh, I got chills with that. That's awesome. That's so awesome. All
Yeah.
right. Well, it's time to say go out there and be that best you can be. Why? Because Raschell and I are going to be the best we can be, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys on the next show.
Bye.